Have you ever wondered why some people simply cannot leave a problem alone? The shelf is broken, they fix it. The relationship is struggling, they fix it. The plan falls apart, they fix it. It is not stubbornness. It is not a need for control. It is something much deeper, and psychology has a name for it. When someone looks at what is broken and quietly decides they will be the one to solve it, something very specific is happening inside their brain. A set of deeply rooted psychological patterns are activating, patterns that were built over years, sometimes decades of experience. These are the people who stay calm when everything falls apart, who find broken things interesting rather than overwhelming, who would rather spend 3 hours figuring something out than 30 seconds asking for help. And if you know someone like this, or if you are someone like this, what you are about to hear will change how you understand that instinct entirely. Because this is not a personality quirk. This is psychology. Stay with this video until the end, because the final reframe changes everything about how you see this behavior in yourself and in the people around you. The first thing to understand about fixers is that their thinking does not happen only in their head. It happens in their hands. There is a concept in neuroscience called embodied cognition. The idea is that the brain does not process the world in isolation, it processes it through the body, through touch, movement, and physical interaction with the environment. When a fixer picks up a tool, examines a broken mechanism, or starts working through a problem with their hands, their brain enters a different mode of processing. One that is more focused, more grounded, and often more effective than purely abstract thinking. Researchers have found that manual engagement, actually doing something physical, activates deeper problem-solving networks in the brain than simply thinking about a problem from a distance. This is why fixers often say they think better when they are doing something. It is not a metaphor, their cognition is literally sharper when their hands are involved. And this is just the beginning. Because once you understand how fixers think, the next question is, why do they trust themselves to do it in the first place? Most people, when something breaks, look for someone else to fix it. They call an expert, they search for instructions, they defer to authority. Fixers do something different. They look at the problem directly and ask, what is actually happening here? This is not arrogance. It is a cognitive preference that psychologists call empirical thinking, the tendency to trust direct experience over second-hand information. Fixers have usually learned at some point in their lives that doing something yourself produces a different quality of understanding than being told how it works. When you fix something with your own hands, you do not just know the solution, you understand the system. And that understanding compounds. Every problem they solve makes them slightly more capable of solving the next one. Every time they trust their own direct experience, that trust is reinforced. This is what separates fixers from people who simply prefer to handle things themselves. It is not just independence. It is a deeply held belief built from evidence that direct engagement produces better outcomes than delegation. But where does that belief come from in the first place? For many fixers, the instinct to solve things is not just cognitive, it is emotional. It often traces back to a specific kind of learning, the kind that happened alongside someone, a parent in a garage, an older relative who showed them how things worked, a mentor who never said just leave it, who always said let's figure it out. Psychologists call this relational learning. Knowledge that was absorbed inside a relationship, and because of that, carries emotional significance far beyond the information itself. For a fixer, picking up a tool is not always a neutral act. Sometimes it is connected, without them consciously knowing it, to the memory of feeling capable, of being trusted with something real, of belonging to a lineage of people who did not give up when things got hard. This emotional layer is important because it explains something fixers themselves often cannot articulate. Why it feels personal when they cannot solve something. Why leaving a problem unresolved creates a specific kind of discomfort that is more than just practical frustration. It is identity, and identity, once formed, becomes one of the most powerful drivers of human behavior. There is a concept in psychology called locus of control. It describes where a person believes the power in their life comes from. People with an external locus of control believe that outcomes are largely determined by outside forces, luck, other people, circumstances beyond their reach. People with an internal locus of control believe something different. They believe that what they do directly shapes what happens, that their effort, their skill, their decisions, these things matter. Fixers almost universally operate from an internal locus of control. When something breaks, they do not experience it as the world happening to them. They experience it as a problem within their domain of influence, something that can be understood, something that can be solved, something that responds to effort. This is not optimism, it is a deeply ingrained framework for how agency works. And research consistently shows that people with a strong internal locus of control are more resilient, more persistent, and more capable of navigating difficulty, not because their circumstances are easier, but because they approach those circumstances differently. The fixer does not wait for conditions to improve, they start working. There is something else that drives fixers, something that the modern world does not always provide. Clear feedback. Most of life is ambiguous, relationships are complicated, work outcomes are uncertain, emotions are layered and hard to read. You can try your best and still not know if it made a difference. But when you fix something, you know. Either it works or it does not, either the light comes on or it stays dark, either the engine runs or it does not. Psychologists who study motivation have found that humans have a deep need for what they call competence feedback, clear, immediate signals that their effort produced a result. When that feedback is absent for too long, psychological well-being declines. Fixers instinctively seek out environments where that feedback exists, where effort leads to visible, undeniable outcomes. In a world full of uncertainty, the satisfaction of something broken becoming whole is not a small thing. For a fixer, it is a psychological anchor, proof that their actions have consequences, proof that they are capable. Proof that they are effective in there is a reason this behavior matters more now than it ever has. We live in a world that has largely removed physical difficulty from everyday life. Most problems are invisible, digital, social, or abstract. The feedback loops are long, the outcomes are uncertain, and the sense of mastery is rare. Psychologists and mental health researchers have begun to connect this shift to rising rates of anxiety, purposelessness, and disconnection, particularly in people who are wired to need tangible results. For fixers, physical problem solving is not just a hobby, it is a mental health tool. It is how they regulate, how they reset, how they reconnect with a sense of competence and groundedness when the rest of the world feels out of reach. The person who disappears into the garage for 3 hours after a hard week is not avoiding life. They are restoring themselves. And that quiet, private act of making something work, of bringing order to something broken, is one of the most fundamentally human things a person can do. So the next time you see someone who cannot walk past a problem without trying to solve it, understand what you are actually seeing. You are seeing embodied intelligence, a person who thinks through their hands. You are seeing earned confidence, built not from being told they could do it but from doing it over and over until the belief became unshakable. You are seeing someone with an unbroken connection to their own sense of agency, who has never fully accepted the idea that broken things have to stay broken. That is not stubbornness. That is not a need for control. That is one of the most quietly powerful psychological profiles a person can have. And if that is you, it always has. If this video gave you a new way of understanding yourself or someone you know, subscribe to Psychology Unlocked right now. Every week we go deep into the psychology of how people think, behave, and become who they are. This is the kind of content that changes how you see the world. I will see you in the next one.